What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Appreciate you guys tuning in for another video. If you guys are new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any future videos. If you guys are looking for more content, check out our members only page. You know, we got exclusive live streams and exclusive videos for members only, so just check that out if you're interested in even more content than we already have on the channel. Well, it's springtime, the bass are biting, and you know, the age-old question when you get out there is what bait to throw. And then you dive a little deeper into different categories, and then you got baits that do a similar thing. You know, you can fish baits in different areas. So I kind of got asked this question actually last week at the Bassmaster Classic. I was talking with Jay Kumar of the Bass Blaster. So if you guys aren't subscribed to his email, super cool email blast he sends out every week. So he's always got the good stuff on there. But he suggested this video idea, and we're going to talk about when I like to throw a rattle trap versus a chatterbait. So these baits fish very similar you know, types of ways. You're fishing in grass, you're fishing, you know, shallow cover in the springtime. So we're going to kind of dive in, give you the nuances of when to throw a rattle trap versus a chatterbait this spring, and I feel like this will help you guys catch a few more bass here in the next couple months. So if you guys are ready, let's jump in and let's give up some juice on the chatterbait or the rattle trap. Okay, so like I said, we are here springtime. I mean, it's it's April next week. Hard to believe April's here already, but this is the time of year when those bass are starting to slide in. If you got grass in your fishery, it's going to be a little more specific to that, but this also works on rock fisheries, gravel, you know, riprap, that type of stuff. You can throw these same sort of baits, but generally speaking, what I'm talking about here today is going to be for more of your grass fisheries. The bass like to slide into the shallows, and they kind of sort of stage on, you know, a little bit deeper grass in those areas where they're going to go up shallower, you know, 2 foot or less to spawn. Now, excellent baits to catch those fish in that grass. Obviously, a bladed jig, the chatterbait, and the rattle trap. They fish very similar situations on when to throw them. And for me, they're very interchangeable. So basically, if I'm throwing a chatterbait, I probably have a rattle trap on deck as well, and vice versa. If I have a rattle trap, I probably have a chatterbait rigged up as well. So I'm throwing them in the same sorts of times, but there's very specific situations where one excels over the other, or I'm gonna pick one up and not the other one. And that's what we're gonna dive in here today. But let's start with the equipment that I like to throw them on. So I actually throw these two baits on the exact same setup. From rod, reel, line, everything, exact same setup. So I like to throw a little bit longer rod for both of these. I throw a 7'5". It's kind of a medium heavy, little bit moderate, kind of a moderate fast action on the rod. And I throw 15 or 17 pound Seaguar InvizX fluorocarbon. And a lot of that has to do with the cover you're fishing it in and how deep you want like the rattle trap or the chatterbait to run. But 99% of the time, 15 pound InvizX, 17 pound InvizX. It's going to be one of those two. Now the reel, I like to throw it on a fairly fast gear ratio reel, but not your super fast, not the fastest you got, but kind of that, you know, mid to high range reel. So I would say somewhere in the 7.3 to 1 gear ratio. That's what I'm throwing these baits on, because you don't want to burn it too fast, because allow that chatterbait or trap to get below the surface a little bit. You know, if you're winding too fast, it'll keep that bait very high and not get down to where those fish are. So 7 in that, you know, between 7 and 8 gear ratio reel is what I'm throwing these baits on. So we got through the equipment. Now let's talk about the situations and sort of the colors, I guess. We could dive into all sorts of juice on these. Now, I got two similar colored baits here. So, you know, obviously this is a shad colored chatterbait. I think this is the spot remover color with a white trailer on the back. And I got a purple a chrome purple rattle trap. So that both of these are imitating a shad. Now the situations I'm gonna throw these, obviously shallow grass. There's gonna be some bait fish around that the bass are feeding in on, you know. And generally speaking, when I'm throwing these two baits, I want the fish to be feeding on that smaller, you know, that 2 to 3.5 inch sized bait fish. They're not gonna be feeding on big gizzard shad, and I'm gonna be throwing one of these two baits, put it that way. They're gonna be feeding in on that same sized bait. Now, situations I pick one versus the other. So the ChatterBait, honestly, is probably the one I pick up first because I can fish him slower. You know, this is a 1/2 ounce ChatterBait here. I can throw a 3/8 ounce ChatterBait as well, and I can fish him slower. So I can cast him out and let him fall to the bottom and give him a much slower retrieve without getting hung up or, you know, kind of balled up in the grass. Whereas your Rattle Trap, it's got treble hooks on the bottom. So it's gonna get kind of balled up in that grass, and you gotta fish him a little bit faster. So first, I'm gonna throw the ChatterBait. That's gonna be, you know, the one I pick up first because I can fish him slower. I can just tick the top of that grass. And if he does get a little bit hung up, you can snap him and he sort of darts out of it a little bit better than the Rattle Trap. Or, you know, a little bit slower, I guess. Not better. They both snap out of the grass very well, but a little bit slower, and you can kind of just slow roll that ChatterBait, fish it a lot closer to the bottom through that grass and whatnot. So that's what I pick up first. Now, if a lot of the times in this situation, you know, we're talking early spring, you know, right pre-spawn, the fish are in very key spots. So the situation that comes to mind is just in a recent tournament at Lake Chickamauga. There's a little small depression in the grass, and the fish were keying in on that little depression. So I was making multiple casts in the same area. Like I said, I start with the ChatterBait, you know, make 15, 20 casts in that same little zone. And after you may catch one, you may not get any bites. At that point, that's when I'm picking up the Rattle Trap. Like I said, it's a similar fishing bait. You can throw it in the same area, but it acts totally different and it helps you pick up a few more fish. So the Rattle Trap I'm picking up second, and I'm gonna fish him a little bit different. Obviously, you can't fish him as slow as the ChatterBait because he gets balled up in the grass. So he's more of a moderate fast retrieve. So you're just keeping him above that grass. And if he ticks that grass, you give him a pop to kind of clean that grass off of the Rattle Trap. And it's a totally different presentation, and it creates a totally different reaction out of those fish that are feeding on that small bait fish. Now, the cool thing about the Rattle Trap is there's multiple ways you can fish it. So you can give it that slow, steady retrieve, almost similar to a ChatterBait, or you can almost yo-yo it, where you wind it real fast and pause it. Wind it real fast, pause it. And you know, you can kind of mix and match and do those different retrieves. But these two baits, like I said, they're fairly interchangeable when you get that situation, but both of them will help you catch more bass. And really, I feel like you got to have both of them rigged up when you're in that shallow grass scenario, and they'll both put some bass in the boat. So hopefully you guys learned something from this video. You know, this is a situation that comes up often. Now, you know, we didn't even dive into color. We only focused on shad colors here, but you know, there's a lot. I would say there's probably more color variations available in your Rattle Traps versus your ChatterBait. So if you really want to try, you know, trigger a new fish or find a different color they may be keying in on, you got a lot more options on your Rattle Traps to try. So that's another kind of nuance in this same conversation that you guys can play with when you're out on the water, and you know, throw a different colored Rattle Trap versus ChatterBait. But we kind of stuck with those shad patterns for this video. So that's just another nuance you guys can play with. But I'm curious your guys' thoughts, so make sure you drop it in the comments down below. Hopefully you guys learned something. As always, hit that like, subscribe, good stuff, and we'll see you guys next time.